How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today on the pod, we're going to be talking with Beto Nitrini. He is a Brazilian awesome guy who runs or helps run a company down in Brazil. He's also an avid triathlete, has a podcast that I will link in the show note descriptions as well. Got connected to him because he reached out and he liked the podcast and got to chatting, and he seemed like a really interesting guy, so I wanted to have him on. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Mr. Beto. Yeah, what do you do full time?
Man, I am a veterinarian. I have a degree in veterinary medicine, but I never work as a veterinary medicine.
Never.
Since never. Since
Wow.
my first when I was young, I always wanted to be a veterinarian, and but I never worked as a veterinarian. In when I was finishing the course, um, one of my professors that was my mentor for my graduation.
Mm-hmm.
He asked me if I could work in a sales in marketing and sales for vet medicine company,
Yeah.
because I was always part of the group of students that create the parties and the games in the university. I used to write in the university journal, so I used to have a lot of relationship with people. So he said, well, how do you feel about working with marketing and sales?
Mm-hmm.
And that was it.
Yeah,
And
you've never
I
looked
start
back then, huh?
never look back. I I got another post graduation in marketing and administration, two post
Okay.
graduations, and now I used to work as a sales director until September last year, and now I work as a
Okay.
M&A director. Because I work at a company here in Brazil that produces pet food. We are the leaders in pet food in Brazil, and we bought a new company, and I'm trying to join the companies together to put the companies together. So it's a
Yeah.
much worse than sales. But here
Yeah.
I am.
I can only imagine. Yeah, mergers and acquisitions
Yeah.
I've heard is a crazy world to live in, but how is it going so far with the merging of the two companies? Do you find that it's working? Like you have a path that you're going to be able to make it work?
I'm I'm trying to find it. No, we started in September,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we do the problem now with most of the companies. The great problem now is in a market strategy, prices and products. And so I'm trying to today I was redoing all the prices and the margins, and for us, for the customers, for the because we sell to dealers and we sell to pet shops. So I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to do all the coming down from the chain and try to find our margins and our cost of production. So that's it. For a
Yeah.
veterinarian, it's pretty different.
Yeah, that's vastly different. Do you ever
Yeah.
miss like working with animals more? I mean, pet food, I guess you're working with animals sort of, but
Yeah.
it's obviously a lot different. Do you miss that side of the work with actually the hands-on working with animals?
Maybe a little, but I think I got a little frustrated with the vet medicine because I grew up. My uncle had a farm here in Brazil. We used
Okay.
to have a milking farm, a dairy farm, and I love to be there. I love to stay there. I stay there the whole weekend, the whole holidays, working with the people in there over there. And I always wanted to be a vet that knows it all. I don't know if
Mm.
you have you ever watched it. There's a program in the Disney Plus that's called The Amazing Dr. Paul. It's a
Yeah, my mother
veterinary.
watches it
Yes, I
constantly. Yes.
that's why my dream job. Working with animals all day. But
Mm-hmm.
since the beginning, I realized that vet medicine in Brazil is a little different than that. And I work here at the racetrack with horses. That was my passion when I was younger. All horses are always my role and my passion.
Oh well.
And I even went to United States from in 2000 and in 99 and to an education about training horses, to be a trainer. Because I
Mm.
was already in triathlons and I decided that I want to train horses like athletes here in Brazil, but never worked out. So here I am. So
Yeah.
I made a lot of plans, but I end up
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Life
Wow.
brought me here.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, before we get too deep into it, just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I
Okay.
forget even how we got connected exactly. It was on Instagram. I know that, but
Instagram.
you run a
Yes.
podcast, right?
Yes. Yes. No, that's the beauty of this of running a podcast. And once I sent a message to Greg Bennett, and he replies me with a video. And since then we are exchanging messages, and this then he put me in contact with a lot of people, with Mark Allen and Bob Babbitt, that I had the opportunity to call. And
Mm,
he always and then after that he said something to me that keeps in my that I kept in my mind. It's always when you see somebody doing something nice, you should make a compliment to these people, because this makes you feel good. So when I
mm,
listen to podcasts, I always send message to people that when I like the podcast, or anything I try to reach the people and to congratulate them from their job, because I think that this keeps them going.
mm,
And you
for
were one
sure.
of them. And like Jack Kelly is another one that since the beginning, when he started the podcast, I start talking to him, and now he always messages me, and I message him, and this is something that I like to do, So meeting people, I think the beauty of having a podcast is the opportunity to meet people, and
Yeah.
now in the internet you can meet people all over the world, so it's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for
Speaking
saying
English
that.
may help you too, because help me with this. I'm not a great English speaker, but I can handle conversation, and can manage myself.
Yeah, no, you're doing well. I mean, I don't speak more than one language, so you're the one who is higher on the pedestal here. So no worries about that at all. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you
No,
stepping out then and doing it.
my father, when I was young here in Brazil, I was like 8 or 9. My father said, "You need to speak English." Me and my sister said, "You must speak English." And I said,
Mm,
"No, no, no one of my friends is going to English school, so I need to get out of the pool, get out of the club, and go to English classes." And now I thank him, and I do the same to my kids. They are always. I said there's no discussion. English is the minimum you need to speak. And now I can
yeah.
speak Spanish too, and I'm starting to learn Italian now
Oh,
because of
wow.
my
That's amazing.
because of my heritage name. My grandfather and my grandmother for both sides are Italian. As you can see, my
Okay.
name, my
Yeah.
full name is Roberto Papa Nitrini. So everybody,
Roberto Papa Nitrini.
when I was out of Brazil traveling, people think that I'm Italian. I am an Italian citizen, but people always wonder if, are you from Italy? No, I'm from Brazil. So
Yeah.
it's it's
So
and
to
so I need to
pronounce your
speak Italian.
yeah. So to pronounce your name correctly is Beto,
Beto,
or is it
yes,
Beto? It is Beto.
Beto,
Okay,
yes.
nice.
It's like
Uh,
Bob. Beto in
yeah.
Brazil is Bob in United
Okay.
States.
Okay, nice. Sweet. Awesome, man. Well, I guess the first question I'd love to ask you is one that I like asking everybody who comes on.
Hmm.
But for you, I think it holds a little bit more weight because you have more life experience. You've done a lot of things. You're involved in many different facets of life. So, who is Beto?
I was wondering about this question for a few weeks since the day we talked that I should come to record this. I'm thinking about
Mm,
this answer,
mm,
and this is a hard one. But I always say I always thought myself, and I always say that I am the father of Lucas and Felipe, the
mhm.
husband of Andressa, the son of Ricardo and Roseli, and brother of Ana Luisa and Maria Fernanda. And I'm trying to be. Um, I think we're always changing. I'm always changing, and I'm always trying to get better in the way that I treat people and the ways I found myself in the society. I think this is the best description about who I am.
Mm. So that comes from a deep place because you mentioned, who you are to other people. So you're very much in, I would say like your values are centered around family. Is that the most
Yes,
important thing for you in life?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
My family is everything, and I'm here in Brazil. I don't know, and coming from an Italian background too, we used to get together every Sunday at my grandfather's house with all the
Mm,
family, all the cousins, all the uncles, the cousins, everybody is there. And nowadays, every Sunday we went to my mom's house with all my nephews, my kids, my sister, my father, and we're always together. So for me, family is always comes first. That's the the most important thing in my life is my family, my wife, my kids, and this is where it always starts for me.
Yeah. What does family give to you that enables you to feel such value surrounding it? Because I've met people who, even though, we would say like family's most important, a lot of people don't have that sense of family or that close knit
Hmm.
support structure. So what does it mean to you to have family?
I think when you have the family so close to you and with some great people, or like my family, my parents, I think it's always a safe place for you to be and to open, and wherever you need support, wherever you need anything, they'll always be there for you. And
Mm.
I grew up with this. My father and my mother, they always support whatever anything I try to do. And this is so. And I grew up very very proud of my father and my mother and my sisters and my wife. And of course my wife comes after that. But and
Mm-hmm.
all the accomplishments that they did and all the accomplishments I did too. They are always supporting me, and I think that I try to pass this to my kids too. That the family and my father and my mother is always like this, because it's when I was like 18 or 16 or 20 years old, I like to get out with my friends, but there's a birthday of an uncle and or my grandfather, my grandmother, and my mother always say you need to go to your grandfather's party, to your uncle party, give them a hug, and then you can go out with your friends. So
Mm.
we grew up with this like very close family in all the and my mother likes to keep the family together every week if possible.
Yeah. How do you find it with, because you have kids of your own now, with those same cultural values of family? Do you feel that it's being communicated in an effective manner to where the younger generation is still putting the same amount of value on family or even more so, or is it less, or do you know?
Well, my kid. Well, I am 49. My older sister is 51, and my other sister is 46. So we have cousins. We have our sons and are always all the same ages, from 11 to 15. So they are always together.
Mm. Hmm.
And I think uh, I thought you fault
Can you hear me?
your videos. Yes, yeah, it's okay. And then
Oh, yeah. No worries.
and they like to be with their cousins, so because they are all the same ages, and so every weekend my father has a country house here near São Paulo where I live, and it's like 50 minutes ride, and we are always there, and the kids are together, and they grew up together, and we travel together in the end of the year, so we always spend Christmas together, and so they grow up. I think we never had they hadn't never had an option to think to live without the family. They are always with the
Yeah,
family.
for sure.
This is, I think they never, and just like myself, I never thought about um, uh, 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 living without my family so close. And this is
Yeah.
hard for us because, I had some friends, and I was talking to a friend of mine that she's Mexican, and she traveled in a lot of places. Like when she was 20, she said, "No, now I'm trying to go away and to spread my wings and fly."
Hmm.
Here we don't have this. We always live like 9 kilometers from my father's house, and I live in the same street that my father-in-law.
Oh,
So
wow.
we were always together. So every time you had a job opportunity that you need to move from another city, the kids are always desperate. No, 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 I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And so it's like this. The family keeps us together.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, as I've gotten older, definitely there's more value placed on family or the quality time, especially now because I have two younger sisters, and my middle sister, she just had her first son 10 months ago, so it's my first nephew, and she's pregnant again. And now I live in California, and she lives on the opposite coast in Tennessee,
Hmm.
so it's definitely hard to. Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about when you know that that's a piece of you in your blood. I don't know. It transcends even words. Like there's nothing really to describe it other than just family, but they make you feel a certain way. It's like when I look into my little nephew's eyes, like I see part of my dad in him which is
Yeah.
crazy. Obviously my sister, and then part of me, and then my brother-in-law as well. But it's just, I don't know. I really want to have kids here soon. Me and my wife plan on having kids in like June or July, or starting to try then. So I'm doing a lot of thinking about what it means to be a father and things like that. So for my question, I guess I just want to ask you, like, do you feel that you are a good dad?
Maybe I'm 7.
7 out
I'm
of
7,
10?
yeah, out of 10 maybe. Yes, I think I'm a little too hard on them
Mm,
sometimes. Mm, I just try to, and it's hard to try to do always. You need, when you are a dad, you need to be always right, and you want to be always right.
mm.
And when you do things and just sometimes when you just do something and you think, oh, this is wrong, I did
Mm.
it wrong, and then you have to, sometimes you hurt them, hurt their feelings, and it's hard to. So it's always like, I try to do my best, but I don't know if I'm doing okay. Sometimes I just
Yeah.
think I'm too hard, and sometimes I think I'm push them away, and when they are growing up, like my oldest is 14, and
Hmm.
it's different because when they are 14, you don't. It's not like they want you around all the time. They're going
Yeah.
to push you,
They're
and it's
really
hard.
cool. Hmm.
Yes, they're always trying to speaking with their friends, with the phone, or sleeping, and it's hard. And the youngest one is more close because, of course, he's younger. But it's trying. With time, you learn to treat them different because they are different. And despite the fact that they live in the same house, they are born from the same father and mother, they are totally
Mm.
different from each other.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's a hard mission to be a dad. So always, and sometimes you think you're doing great, and sometimes you think you are the worst father in the world. So
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah, I can only imagine. When you said 14, I was thinking about how I was 14, and between the ages of probably when I could start to think logically, around the ages of 10 to probably when I was close to 23, those years were really just
Yeah.
me and my mother, and for when my father was around too, like we butted heads so much. But it's something that happens, and I don't know if it happens between every father and son, or father and daughter, or mother and son, or mother and daughter. But it's like there's this age of reckoning or understanding comes. At least for me, it hit when I realized, like, man, my parents are actually just kids too, and they're just trying to figure stuff out. And then when I was able to put them in that light and then that perspective, I was able to see them in such a different way that humanizes them more. Because when I was 14, I remember looking at my mom and my dad, like, whatever I did, I was like, well, I can't hurt them. Like, I truly believed like that I couldn't hurt them, or that they were just like above me in such a way that they could not be affected by, even in moments of desperation, when kids say like, oh, I hate you or whatever. I remember one time specifically, I said that, and my dad came to me, and he said, you made your mom cry. And I'd never seen my mom cry. And
Yeah.
so I think that was the first seed that was planted, where I realized, like, wow, they're just humans too. And still, there's like this disconnect in my mind when I think about a father and a son, or specifically because I'm a man or whatever. But that relationship, how for the longest time in my mind, it was always kind of one way, like this one way street. But then I saw, like, oh, as a child, you can actually add a lot of value and purpose and meaning back into the older adult's life, which
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know why that seems strange to me, but when that first started to become a realization, it was kind of odd.
And the relationship between father and sons, it's different than mother and son. And I can say that I'm too hard, and my wife sometimes is too soft. So there's this balance, When the kids
Yeah.
want something, they first come to their mother, and then they come to me to
Hmm.
to see if I can assure of about what they have arranged with their mother. So
Yeah.
this is this is the balance, and it's hard.
Yeah. How do you, because you said like you're still trying to figure it out, and I don't expect you to have like a conclusive 100% answer. But for me, like, I'm thinking, I tend to be probably more like you, like where I would be hard on people. I know I'm hard on my wife at times, and like I'm trying to be better about that, or I'm hard on my sisters or my mother. But how have you found like the best way to know when to extend that, I don't know, hard hand a little bit versus like be a bit softer? Or because you said there's a balance, are you starting to find that balance?
Yes. Well, I think that the balance comes from you need when you're coming home from work and you need to leave all the stress at the car, for example, or at the office. And I always try to when I've, it's hard it's rare for me to come out of the office and go straight home. Sometimes I go to the gym, sometimes I go to the pool, and I try to let my stress of the day over there. And and
Mm.
sometimes it don't work. So sometimes you get home stressed and kids and when you have two boys at home, they are 14 and 11 like mine. They're always trying to tease each other, and sometimes I lose when they start fighting. So and because sometimes I try to anticipate the fight. When I see that there's going to be a sparkling that can become a fire, I try to get in the middle. And if I get some stress, sometimes I can get really loud, and then I got angry with them and send them to their rooms. And in a few minutes, I just regret about what I did and try to
Mhm.
talk to them and reunite it. But this is the balance I try to find. And sometimes I just try to think twice before acting. And because I
Mm.
know I know they are not doing that on purpose. They are brothers, and brothers are like always like this. They are teasing each other all the time. So
Yeah.
it's hard, but uh, and it's every day, man. Every day is a different day, and you need to be prepared to try to not lose too much, not get lost your hand, and you know and go over the line.
Mm. Yeah, you said think twice. Like that's always been such a struggle for me because when I'm in the moment and I make a conclusive thought or action in my mind, it's like it seems so this way, or the world seems a very specific color, and then I'll give it some time, especially with my wife. Like, and then I give it 5, 10 minutes, and then it's just amazing how once the blood pressure comes down, that the perspective seems so much clearer, or
Hmm.
the action to be made is just usually a bit softer, more leading
Yeah.
with kindness, which is a very hard thing to do because I think there is, and I'd be curious to know what you think about this. Like, I think there are times when we should be very passionate and when we approach a situation and come with like a heavy hand and like a stern voice or whatever, because sometimes logic doesn't transcend, especially to kids, I would imagine, to like to their mind because they haven't fully developed up here in the frontal lobe yet, where you're trying to
Hmm.
communicate something that could affect them long down the road. And then so yeah, it's finding that balance, and I haven't figured it out yet, and I don't know if I'll ever figure it out either. But like you said, it's
Yes,
a
me
daily
neither.
battle. Yeah. So let me switch gears a little bit. Triathlon is obviously a big piece of your life, like post work. It's a de stressor. When
Yeah.
did you first come in contact with the sport of triathlon? And tell me that story.
It was some time ago. I joined a university here in Brazil in 1996 in University of São Paulo. And by that time, the campus of the university was the place where the triathletes and the cyclists here in São Paulo used to train. And I always loved bikes since very early. When I was young here, I go by bike and to every place. I go by bike to the school. I go by bike to clubs, and there was a BMX track here very close to my house. So I
Ah,
started
cool.
doing BMX, and I loved it when I saw like ET. It's 82. I was 7, and
Yeah.
yes, I got the same bike that they got, and for me, this is something that I start loving bikes. And when I
Mm.
saw these guys riding road bikes in the campus, in the university campus, so I figured out that maybe there's a race that I can do. And one day I was inside the campus. There was a center of a sportive center, with soccer fields and pools and gymnasiums and gym and things like this. And one day
Hmm.
I was there doing my workout, and I found there's a sign there will be a triathlon in the campus. So I I tried to I thought that I should do it, and I did it with a race with a mountain bike with
Nice.
no much with not the technology we have today. And it's in 1997, and it
Mm.
was my first triathlon. And since then I fall in love with the sport, and I've been following since then. It's it was there's you always try to when I was like 97, I was 22, and you're always trying to find a sport or find a place that you can be different, like,
Mm.
and in Brazil, if you don't play soccer, you're
You're
I'm
the
not a
odd
good
one
I'm not,
out.
I'm not a great soccer player, never been. I started playing soccer at a very kid here in Brazil. I started playing soccer when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and but I wasn't so good, so I ended up as a goalkeeper. And then I went to basketball because of my father. My father plays basketball. My father is taller than me. I'm 6 feet, and my father is 6 feet and six
Mm.
6.3, 6.4. So
Okay.
he teaches me to play basketball when I was like 11 years old. We had a basketball in in our garage here in São Paulo, and he teach me every move and how to handle the ball, how to shoot, and everything else. And I try to be a basketball player. I play basketball for 6 or 7 years, but I always got cut in the end of the practice because I was too short, and there was always the guys that are bigger than me. And but I did it nice and much better in basketball than in soccer.
Mm.
And then I was always trying to find a sport because here in Brazil, when to join the university is different than United States. There's a test that you need to do. It's a test that you do like for 3 or 4 days of test and all the subjects, all the subjects that you had in school, and you got there like these tests, and according to your grades, you join the university or not. So you have
Mm.
to study for these tests, and it's get harder to go to the club or go to the park to play basketball, and I need three more people, and I start running, and then I start running when it's in 1994, 1993. I start running half an hour a day, and
Well,
then comes the triathlon university, and then the triathlon got, got in. And I decided that it's something different than you do, and it was very. It's a new sport here in Brazil. Of course, triathlon came to Brazil in 1983. I believe that was the first race here, and I was 97.
not too long after after America
Yeah,
as well, around the
yeah,
same time.
and but I was in 1997 that I did my first triathlon, and then and then I grew up with the sport. The sport was growing here in Brazil, growing up, and they're developing, and I follow this path of development of the sport here in Brazil. So I
Hmm.
since 1997 I've been doing every kind of triathlon you can imagine here in Brazil.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've reached your full potential?
No, I believe that I did in short courses and in Olympic distance. Yes, I never could perform as good as I did in the short courses like in half distance and or Ironman. I believe that I never achieved my full performance in short in a half Ironman or an Ironman. Never.
Are you still on the journey to find that like really good, perfect performance day? Do you think that's still possible?
Oh, I think this is something that is hard because my last Ironman I did was in 2010. I did four Ironmans, and then in 2010
It's a
my
big year.
first kid was born. Lucas was born,
Hmm.
and then I decided that I can fit the Ironman in my routine with a kid because it's hard. It was hard for me to go out in a Sunday or in a Saturday and for come back home at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon and left
Hmm.
my wife with the kid, and it's something there was something that I don't I was I didn't want to be away from the kid, so I want to be there for every moment, to change the diapers, to hear
Hmm.
the crying, and to have to carry him. And that's something that I decided that from that moment I will be focused on my in the Ironman 70.3 or the half Ironmans, that because they are much more easier to train than an Ironman.
Hmm.
So in 2022, I decided that I try to do another Ironman, but it was so hard on me, and it was like 1 month. There was 1 month to the race, and I was already regretted because I think I was too much time away from home. I said
Hmm.
this is not fair. it's not fair with the kids. It's not fair. Because I remember that one day I do a 100 miles and then a 1 hour run, 100 miles cycling and 1 hour run, and I got home and the kids wanted to go to a soccer game of our team here in São Paulo, and I get them and I go to the stadium, and the stadium is like an hour and a half to get there, and then we stay the whole game and watch the game, and then we get an hour and a half to go back home, and I think I could be here enjoying the game with the kids, and I'm tired as hell, so I can even be standing to watch the game. So this for me was hard, and I decided that the Ironman is something that is not part of my life. So I couldn't fit the training in my routine. So I decided to stay at the maximum of the half Ironman, which I did a lot of them. I did 50 half Ironmans.
Wow, that's a lot.
5 Ironmans. So this is the distance that I like. I like doing a half Ironman and Olympic distance. This is the best distance that I do. And
yeah, same. I really
for me, it's short, and is the half, the Olympic and the standard distance. This is the standard, the sprint distance and the Olympic distance are the one that I performed better. Use it too when I was young.
Yeah, after doing, I've only done 2 Ironmans, but after doing those, every half distance race seems so much more palpable in terms of what you can endure. So Beto, you come across to me as like a very self-aware individual. Like you're talking about, just the analysis of when you're doing the long training days for Ironman, you're thinking, okay, well, if I'm not able to be 100% present at the kids' soccer games or whatever it is, the stuff around the house, changing diapers. I heard you talk a little bit about the work that you do now in mergers and acquisitions. You graded yourself a 7 out of a 10 to be a good dad. Like a lot of these things take a lot of self-analysis and understanding of who you are and who you are not. Where did that self-awareness, or when did that self-awareness start to develop in you? Do you have moments in time where you started to realize that this would be more of a focus in your life?
I think I always be like more rational than a passionate. So it's always for me. I try to think. I think maybe overthink everything. So I'm always try to find to find a place that I could be comfortable with. So when you ask about the timing, I always say to my friends, they say, "Oh, how could you fit the training routine in your day?" And I always try to be rational. I can wake up early, go to a practice, and go to work. At the lunchtime, I can go swimming, and everything is so is trying to is scheduled and design it and think. And I thought about everything, and maybe this is not so good sometimes. Sometimes I think that I could
like overanalyzing.
Yes. Like every step, everything, and you need to go for a trip. And you need to every time you go for a trip, like doing calculations and see how much you can spend, and every time. So this is something that is not so good. But sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But I don't know. I don't know exactly when I start to think like this. But I always I grew up. My father was like the same. My father is a doctor, and he's a professor at the University of Medicine here in Brazil too. And I grew up with him writing his thesis, and I remember that he was in his office, and I was at the garden waiting him to play soccer, and he always said, "Oh, soccer or basketball," and said, "Oh, I'm gonna be studying from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. and then we go play to 6 from 7." So this is how I try to. Sometimes I believe that this is how I start doing everything I do. So I got time, and I try to plan everything. I try to put everything in sheets, like to see how many hours I can work out a week, and this is. But I can. It's impossible to say when this started. I believe this growth started to grow in the time that I need to study to get to university. Like when I have to study to university, I go to college to high school, and then I come back home and I study from 2 to 6. Then I go out for a run, then I come back, take a shower, lunch, and
Yeah.
study a little more. So I believe that this is when it started, because this is when you need. This is the first time when I was like 18 or 17. This is the first time that I need to get some responsibility about your studies, and
Hmm.
because if I don't study, I couldn't join the university. So this is the
Yeah.
first time that you were responsible for that. Because in high school you're doing with I
Yeah,
never
you're
had
just
so.
floating.
Yes, because school is not so was never so hard for me.
Mm.
I can always take it like very light. So I can, like, you need to take a grade 7 to make it to the next year. So
Mm.
I could handle that without too much effort. Not that I'm great, no, I'm not a very smart person, but I could do it. So for me, it's not so hard. But when I start to go to the university, then I need just to invest a little time in my studies, and that's, I believe that this is when it started to be all this overthinking and over planning. This is when it
Mm.
starts.
That reminds me of kind of my own experience when I was I was 18, turning 19, finishing my senior year of high school, and my girlfriend at the time, her dad was a successful businessman, and I was going through just a really tough time in general. But I started to have, like you were saying, a little bit more responsibility. I was having to apply for college, and I felt like I had constantly just a lot of stuff going on in my brain of trying to like figure out how I'm going to make everything work. And he's like, look, what you need to start doing is just writing things down. And that for me was like the first way of stepping into, I think, one, therapy, because like I could write it down. And there's something about taking all of the stuff that's up here and putting it down on paper that gives a sense of peace. Like, okay, what's out there? I don't have to think about it as much. But then as I wrote that down, got to college, started doing more of the time management stuff that you're talking about, there was a sense of comfort that came with that. And I just want to push back on you a little bit because you're saying, like, maybe you overanalyze a little bit too much. Obviously, I don't know you more than, this 37-minute conversation, but from hearing the things that you've done so far in your life, especially with the work you're doing now in mergers and acquisitions and the podcast and training, you don't seem to lack any level of the ability to execute on these things. So I think your analysis is probably pretty good because we have to analyze things and mitigate risk, which is what your job is all about, I would assume. But having the execution, I think that's where most people lack, because you can become over analytical and you never do anything because it's like you're afraid to move. But yeah, it's just an observation. You can tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I can. I always, as you said, I always like to write things down. Every day I come to the office, I write a to-do list every day, and I try to leave the office before I complete this list. So,
Yeah.
but it's hard because sometimes, and you can sometimes there are things that are not you can solve all the problems alone. So sometimes it depends on other people,
Mm.
and this is very frustrating sometimes because most of the people and this is for me is the hard at work when I need and I depend in someone to do something, and these people doesn't have the same degree of commitment that I have.
Mm.
This is
That's hard.
something that is very hard for me, and I have to work on this for a very long time because I'm very punctual. So when I say somebody, or when I need something done at the March 12 at 2 o'clock, I need this done at March 12 2 o'clock, because and I could do it. So everybody here in Brazil is very difficult with this because Brazilians are not very punctual.
Yeah.
Like when somebody invites you to go to her house for a dinner at 8, if you arrive there at 8, probably the owners of the house weren't there. So when somebody says 8, it's
That's so
probably
crazy to me.
8:30 or 9.
Yeah.
When a party starts at 10 o'clock, if you're there at 10 o'clock, nobody's there. So probably it's gonna be at 11:30. But
Yeah.
here
Wow.
in the meetings in Brazil, when you start like, okay, let's do a meeting at 2 o'clock, people start 2:10, 2:15, and they always start with some small talks like, how's the soccer game yesterday? How's the weather? And this goes for like a half an hour, and then the meeting starts. So and I had some problem with this, and it's hard because sometimes then you end up being like this this grumpy guy, that's always complaining about the delay, and people are, and and people like my friends that went to work out with me. I always say that we need to start riding, go for a ride of bikes. And there's a 30 kilometers ride with a car, then for the road that we go to practice here in Brazil, and we start like 6 a.m. in the morning. So 6 a.m. in the morning, I'm ready. I'm on my bike with my helmet and my shoes, and I'm ready to go. And if you arrive at 6, I'm gonna be pissed off with you. Because when it's
Yeah.
and even sometimes here, I start okay. So people, I gotta get rolling because you can meet me in a way because my kids are waiting for me, and I need to be home at 11, and I need to be home at 10:30 because my wife is gonna do something, has something to do, and I need to stay with the kids, or I promised then I'm gonna go down for a bike ride with them. So I always have this. This is something that can make you tired because I always have everything planned. The weekend
Mm.
when I go for a ride, I have to start at 6 because I need to be home at 10:30 because the kids are waiting, and I need to take my kids to a friend's house, or there's a thing. I need to help them with the homework. So this is something that is always trying to 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 meet ends. All the time, all trying to fit in a very short schedule. You need to fit everything. So this is like being a dad and being a worker and a triathlete.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
balance that you need to
That
find.
Yeah, 100%. So then well, actually, I have to ask this question first. For the Brazilian culture, and I think it's similar in a lot of Latin American and South American and even Central American countries, just this, you can be here at 8, everyone's going to be here at 8:30, 9 o'clock. Like, where does
Yeah,
that come from? How did that
I don't know.
become like an institutionalized cultural staple? Like,
I don't
where
know.
does that come
I
from?
don't know. I don't know, but it's something that's here in São Paulo. Sometimes people are not so flexible, but in other countries, in other states here in Brazil, like in Rio de Janeiro, it's much more lighter. People, and this is hard because they're always you are always in people are always late, and nobody complains. It's understandable. It's the traffic, or oh, sorry, I had something to do first. So, but I don't know where it comes from because I can say that from my Italian parents, probably my father, and they are always like very organized, and my father is very organized, and I try always. But even in my family, I can say to you that I am always the first to be there in the parts before my uncle. There's an uncle. They are always. If it's meet, it's 1 o'clock. He's there 1 o'clock, and I
Yeah.
I get there 1:05, 1:10. But he's 1 o'clock. He's the more punctual. He's the most punctual in the family.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it comes
Well,
from.
yeah, it's interesting. So with all of that you have going on, speaking of time management and just having the ability to fit all these things in, how does the podcast fit into that?
Well, now the podcast. I left the podcast a little behind. I should confess because it's been hard to find time to fit in,
Sure.
and for me this is something that I started a podcast in 2020. There was the
Okay.
there was the biggest one where like we reached some very very important numbers like 7,000 viewers for per episode,
Wow, that's
and
really good.
but it's difficult for me because people are. I come back to the subject we are talking first because for me there's this commitment. If you're going to record every Friday at 2 o'clock, it's every Friday at 2 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and then we try to find a guest, and then when like because I did a podcast with 3 other friends, and we are in four, and there's always a guest, so 5 people. So when you try to squeeze a calendar in between 5 people,
Yeah,
and
it's hard
when
to do.
it's like in the day before, it's, oh, I couldn't go, and then and then you start doing it. I end up doing most of the work by myself, and I got a little frustrated, and then we end up stopping the podcast, and then I start another one, and then I changed my job here in the company, and then I got lost. So
Yeah.
I have to talk to Fabio, that was a former pro triathlete here in Brazil. That was my partner at the podcast. That I couldn't. I need to take a break just to fit you to get things going here with my job
Mm.
and with this new position, and then we could restart the podcast. But it's on hold for a moment. But
Yeah.
it was very hard to do, and I decided to put it on hold because I don't like to do um, uh, I don't like to do something with my full without the full dedication. If you
Mm-hmm.
are trying to do something, you need to do it the best way you can.
Mm.
And I don't like to do a podcast just to keep doing. So I need to do a good content for people that likes, because I know people like. And since I was in the sport for a long time, I know a lot of people. A lot of people know me here, and I didn't want to do uh, to be under my standard. So I decided
Yeah,
to
you
put
want
it
it to
on
be
hold.
good quality.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I need to put it on hold, and maybe we should come back in the second semester. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
need to settle things first.
So based on the YouTube, I guess the last episode came out 4 months ago. Is that about when the time when you started this new job?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
I started in September, the new job.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah. So, well, even though you haven't done it for a while, it sounds like you're going to come back to it. What are some of the lessons and experiences that you have that come to memory of the podcast itself? Like, what are some of the things that you've learned from podcasting?
Uh, the best thing about the podcast is the people that you get to know. I think I
Mm-hmm.
get to know a lot of people that or get to know better, because I got to know a lot of triathletes here from Brazil that was my idols when I started doing the podcast, like Oscar Galindez, that was an Argentinian triathlete here in Brazil that went to the podcast, and Emerson Gomes and Marcos Paulo Reis, that was a former coach here from the Brazilian triathlete team, and of course Greg Bennett, Bob Babbitt, and Mark Allen and Matt Dixon, all these people that I could get to know from the podcast, and you always learn something from them. But there's something that I always try to keep in mind, that is one of them I already said, because it's something about what I speak to Greg Bennett. This is when you see somebody doing something good, make a
Mm-hmm.
compliment, because this is keep them going, and it's nice to have a good comment for our ego, and when you do so, when you make a compliment about something, about someone, it's good for the people who listen, and it's good for the people who is making the compliment. So I think this is a two-way path, and another thing that I learned from, there's I always like to say, is from Mac Dixon, when they say that if your triathlon training is becoming a second job, you're doing it wrong. So
Mm.
he's trying I need to hit these numbers today. I need to hit this number here at the company. This is where I had to hit the numbers and hit the goals. At my hobby, I don't need to do this. So if it starts
Mm-hmm.
to becoming a second job, and you're doing it wrong. So this is the things that I learned from most one of the things that I learned with the podcast. But and well, hearing about I said, hear about pro triathletes, and hear about Bob Babbitt telling us about the story of the first Ironman. There's always
Mm-hmm.
some experience that are very nice.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to what you're saying, if it becomes where you're trying to hit the numbers and it becomes a second job, like that can be an unhealthy thing. How many times have you had to take a step back or kind of pull back the reins some in your world of triathlon? Is it still a temptation for you to treat it as a second job? I know that you said that you've pulled back and it's not as much of a focus now with
Hmm.
family, but is it still ever a temptation?
No, for me, I am very. When I was young, and I had all the time in the world. I wasn't married, and I didn't have kids, so I could train as much as I can. But
Yeah.
of course, triathlon back then was not so hard like it was today. Because I think that today triathlon training is very hard, because you have like training peaks, and you have like you have the green sheet all the
Yeah,
week.
the
So
colors. Yeah.
the color. So this is a lot of pressure that we didn't have. I have a notebook My coach used to send me an Excel sheet with my workouts. I just did the workouts and take notes in my notebook. So I don't need to. There's no much numbers to hit. So, but when you're young and you have all the time in the world, you can punish yourself as much as you can, and
Yeah.
and the next day you're good to go. And when you
Yeah.
start to get older, you don't need this. I think when if you get this, but it works for some people. But for me, I don't like it. I don't like it. I feel pressured. I feel the
Yeah.
pressure, and I don't like the pressure to run. Like I need to run an hour up tomorrow in a 4:20, 4:30 minutes per k, and for an hour. So I don't like it. I like to run for an hour in doing like in a light workout or a heavy or moderate or light, and so it's something I like to do in the rate of perceived effort. So not much of an indication of pace or heart rate. So for me, this is something that I like to do more like the
Hmm.
old school way, maybe because
Yeah.
this is how I learned to train. Because when I
Hmm.
start training, when I start work training for triathlons, this is how I receive my workouts. You're gonna do a hard 1 hour training right today. You're gonna do a mild. You're gonna do it's very light. You're gonna do it very hard.
Yeah.
And now, when it comes with powers and numbers and the things that
Yeah.
and this is and once I was talking to Matt Dixon too, and he always say that we are like kind type A personalities. So when somebody say that you need to write 2.5 hours in 235 watts, and you do like 229, you end up the working out saying, no, this is was a waste of time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's the best you have for today, and it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. That was a
as you said,
lesson.
the colors are the
Go for
workout is
it.
not being green in the training peak, so you're gonna be like, oh no, I did it wrong, so I need to
Yeah.
do it again. And this is something that I don't like. This is something that I think that is becoming like a second job and taking the pleasure out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a balance for sure. When I first got into the sport, it was similar to you. I trained myself and it was all time based, and I kind of just went based on how I felt for the day. And if I ran hard, I ran hard. If I ran easy, I ran easy. Then I got a
Yeah.
coach. Then they started assigning stuff in power numbers and making sure not to go too hard or too easy here or there. And yeah, it became disenchanting after a while. And now I'm back to coaching myself, and um, I really haven't figured out if I'm too easy or too hard on myself still yet. But I tend to go a lot easier a lot more often now. And when I do
Yeah,
go
yeah,
hard, like I tend to go pretty hard. So it's, yeah. But I like that. It's a more freeing thing. I think even for professionals, because at the end of the day, once you get married to the numbers, it's like, oh, I'm 5 watts low on this interval. And then you get this mental spiral, and then it's your whole workout can be trashed based on just that little bit of a mindset. So sometimes not having power is good. I remember hearing this crazy thing too, which I guess isn't crazy, but Daniela Reef, she, for the first many years that she raced, even through her first championship win, I'm pretty sure, her first few championship wins, she never used power or any data during racing. She just went out and did it, and
no,
kind
she
of
was.
based on how she
This is
felt.
us, the Brett Sutton. Brett Sutton is
Yeah,
always in rate of perceived efficient, always,
yeah, I think I like
because he
that
doesn't
better.
like anything like power meters or GPS and things like this.
Yeah, yeah. So for you, who is your go-to people or person that you get support from? Because like you, we talked in the beginning about this job right now that you're going through, and it seems pretty stressful. Like you've got a lot that you're trying to figure out and make work. Who do you go to for mentorship or guidance, or do you do it on your own?
Oh, I talk a lot. I talk a lot with my wife. We're always talking about our jobs. She's always complaining about her job and mine.
Yeah,
So we're always trying to figure out. I talk with them. I talk with her a lot, and with my father too. My father, my mother. I used, and I got some friends here in Brazil that we used to. We are friends since we are like early 20s, and we start doing triathlons in 2000. Like I met them in 2001, 2002, and we are friends since then. And I always talk to them, and they are and we talk a lot about our social life, our family life, and our jobs. And these are the guys that I'm always speaking with them, and but mostly these friends. There's three friends here in Brazil. Two friends, most especially, like
Hmm.
and Fabio and José Fabrício. They are great friends, and my wife, my father, and my mother. These are the people that I mostly talk to. I had a
Oh,
I
your
had
fa-
a, I had a professional mentor for a few months ago in like last year. We did some sessions like, but I'm not doing it anymore.
yeah. Did it help when you did it?
Yes, yes, it helps. It helped, and I joined therapy for a few years ago, but then I stopped and never get back. But I think that it helped a lot too. And I'm
Yeah.
always trying to get back, but when I look at my schedule, when I could fit
Time.
another hour of therapy. But therapy is very good. I think if you
Yeah.
have the opportunity to do, you should do it for at least some time. Everybody should do it because
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
has some problem, has some issues, and you need to a professional advice sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of looking for a new counselor right now. I've been in and out of therapy so many times during my life, and at some points in my life, I absolutely hated it, usually when I was younger. But always going back is always a bit of a tough thing because you have to like rehash a little bit. Hey, here's my story, yada, 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 yada. But once you get into the meat and potatoes of what's actually going on underneath, there's a lot to be said because so much goes on up in my brain that's unspoken, and then once I speak it out loud for the first time, I'm like, wait a second, that doesn't seem right, or that's not
Yeah.
how I imagined it. It's just like things that seem so intuitive and understood in my brain once they are put out into the space using words or written down. It's just they change their look and feel quite drastically.
Yeah.
So my last question for you: how has or what does success look like for you now in your life going forward?
A few years ago, a few months ago, I did a post on the internet in my Instagram about successful as an age group triathlete,
Hmm.
and people always say, "Oh, what's successful age grouper triathlete?" So I'm gonna divide it like for my age grouper, my triathlete, and my job. And I always say that I never went to Kona. I never did an Ironman under 10 hours. The best that I did was 10 hours and 8 minutes. And maybe you could look this and say, well, this guy is doing triathlons for 30 years. He never been to Kona. He never do an Olympic distance triathlon under 2 hours. I never did a sprint distance in under 1 hour. Never run a marathon in under 3 hours. Never run a half marathon under. I did a marathon in 1 hour and 25 minutes. A half marathon. But I'm doing this for 30 years. I have two kids. I am a director in a big company in Brazil. I have a very good marriage. I have a very good relationship with my family, and I'm happy. So I'm happy doing what I do. So I believe this is success for me. And
Hmm.
I started in a company in 1996 as a supervisor of the people of trade marketing, and I supervise two guys that go to pet stores here in Brazil doing merchandising for our products. And I grew up with the company, and now I'm here in the same company 20 years, almost 20 years back, 20 years
Hmm.
later as a director. So I believe I was successful in my job too. And but I believe this is I'm very happy with what I did so far. I'm almost 50 years and healthy and doing. Everybody said, "Are you doing your dream job?" Probably not, because my dream job was I love to be a veterinarian when I was a kid. But I'm doing a job that satisfies me. It's a very fulfillment job. I can say I work with some friends. I get some good relations at work, and I believe this is success. This is what I can call success. I never. There's something. Well, sometimes I talk about starting my own business, but my entrepreneurship is below zero. I never do endure any of my. I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of ideas writing down, but I never
Hmm.
start any of them because I believe this is something bad from about Brazilians that is not so good. We never in Brazil we are never Um, Brazilians never didn't have the, in United States you grew up to be entrepreneurships. You have this path that everybody's trying to do by their own. Here in Brazil, you grow
Mm-hmm.
up to work to in a company or to be a doctor or to be something like this, and it's very hard to you talk to Victor and he probably have talked to you. It's very hard to be an entrepreneur here in Brazil. So
Mm.
uh, it's a different perspective. So even for the veterinarian people here in Brazil, for example, you do 5 years of school of vet school here in Brazil, and you never had a one day of management. And probably when you graduate, you're gonna imagine your own clinic or your own pet store, and you don't know
Yeah.
anything about this. You don't
Yeah.
know anything about doing costs and how to calculate your profits and nothing. You're gonna be you're gonna be out of school and you need to open your business and you don't know anything about this.
Mm.
So this is mm, this is I don't know. It's a I, I'm pretty fulfilled with what about the what I became. So maybe not the plan I've done when I was younger, but here I am.
Yeah. No, I think that's success. The fact that you said you have a healthy marriage, a job that satisfies you, and you're able to do stuff like triathlon and podcasting as time allows. I think that's huge. For me, a lot of the mentors that I've looked up to over the years have changed now that I'm older because, I think of like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or any of like the big ones that, are easily become role models for a lot of
Hmm.
kids. I'll almost immediately disqualify someone from the list now based on, well, do they have a successful marriage? Because I think that at the end of the day, like I place a lot of value on family. And I think that society is built on the backbone that is families
Hmm.
interacting and having healthy children, healthy outlooks on life, and creating members of society that ultimately add value to each other and bring kindness and love. And if I am a super successful business owner, have $1 billion company, and all of my closest relationships and family have been thrown by the wayside and are non-existent or toxic, then what have I really added to society? I would argue probably not a whole lot because the amount of lives that you've positively impacted on a personal level, like I think that far outvalues any unicorn price of evaluation of some company
Yes.
because you're talking about with
Yeah, and of course, when you say I have a healthy marriage, I didn't have the perfect marriage. Of course, I have some times of stresses. Of course, and we've been together since 2005, and but pretty much, we can handle all the situations pretty good. And Andressa, my wife, is very supportive, and she's always there for me, and I'm always there for her. So in the tough times, we are always together, and this is what matters, and for being together for 20 years, and for the next 20 years.
congratulations, by the way.
But it's not easy, and it's a very difficult balance to keep. And but we are doing nicely, I believe.
Yeah. I actually have another question. Are you a religious or spiritual person?
Not much, not really. My wife is a lot. My wife is my family. My grandfathers and my grandmother, they are all very religious. I believe they're from the Italian background.
Mm-hmm.
But my father, my father is one of the greatest specialists in the world about from Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, really?
So I even went to Philadelphia in last August, because he was receiving a lifetime award from his research in Alzheimer's disease in the American Society of Alzheimer's uh, Research.
Hmm.
And as a scientist, people they're so related to science tend to be less religious.
Mm.
And I think we grew up with this in the family. But I went my when I was young, I went to, I don't know how to say in English this, because we have like when you were a kid, like believe I was 8 or 9, I went to the church to take some classes about the Bible. And it's kind of a graduation, and you go to the church with the father and the priest, and you do some studies in the Bible. This is what I did, and then I lost the contact with the church, and
Mm.
but mostly because of my family, and because of my father, I believe. but I'm not a very religious person. But I respect all religions, and as I know my wife is she's more religious than me, and she prayed with the kids every night. She went to she and but I'm not.
Have you ever had any of those experiences where you feel like, oh, there's got to be a higher power. There's something
No,
else out there.
I always think that there's something there. I don't know what,
Yeah.
but there's
Yeah.
something there. I had some experience in my life that um, I could tell you one. It's something that's very.
Please do.
I have two very very interesting experiences. When I was like 3 or 4, I was at my uncle's house and I fall into a lake. There's a bridge and I fall into a lake, and I have the perfect image of seeing my father and my uncle jumping in the river, getting me from the river, taking me out, and I was watching they doing this, and I have this
Oh, you're like outside of your body.
outside of my body. I have this total perspective of the whole scene, looking from above like I was in a drone, when they come. And when I was 7, I got run over by a car in my street,
Oh, wow.
and I got the same perspective. I was looking from above. From my mom comes from the house, takes me on the sidewalk and get me in the car and take me to the hospital. And I got this true experience that I always and and I believe that there must be something. I don't know what, I don't know when, where, but there's something controlling everything. I don't know. Of course, I always say that there's there's a God, probably not the Catholic or the there's another religion. There are like 300 gods, and
Mm-hmm.
when somebody say that I believe in God, probably you should believe in something then, and I don't know what, but there's something probably.
Have you ever tried to talk to that being? Like, have you ever tried praying to that or to talk or communicate with the higher power?
Oh, sometimes I believe that sometimes you try to. I said once I was that's another story. When I got
Yeah.
married, my wife and I went to talk to the priest. They were going to celebrate our marriage, and my wife said, "Ah, he doesn't believe in God." And then the priest looked at me and said, "I know what you do. You say you don't believe, but when you are alone, when you're alone in the dark, you pray."
Then you believe.
And I said,
There's no
"Yes,
atheists in war,
yeah,
right?
yes." I said, "Yes. I know what you do when the doors are closed and you're alone and you need some help, and probably everybody. So that's why I don't call me an atheist, because sometimes I believe that sometimes you need to, sometimes you pray, I don't know, and sometimes it's like this, but I'm not a very religious person, but I'm not. I couldn't say I'm totally away from it. I have some
Yeah.
some beliefs.
Hmm. There's always more to explore and
Yes,
understand.
yes,
That's for
always.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Beto, thank you so much for sharing those intimate stories and just sharing a bit about your life and what you've gone through, what's going on in just your entire sphere. It sounds like you do a lot of things, but I really respect you for valuing family, I think, above all else. That's a very admirable trait. So I appreciate you sharing that and for coming on, man.
No, thank you very much for the invitation, and as I said, it was a pleasure. And I don't know we're gonna have so much listeners to this episode, but it was a nice talk and some nice opportunity to get to know you better. And maybe
Yeah.
sometime you can come to Brazil, and maybe sometime I could come to California and we can meet in person.
Yeah, for sure. You have a place to stay, you and your family. There's only one bedroom, but if we can fit you all on couches and on the floors,
No,
as long as you're here on time.
yes, and I
Yeah.
don't know. I always say when people invite me over, I always say, "Ah, you don't deserve to be with my kids running around your place every day." So it's not
I
so
love it.
it's not so easy. They're always trying to destroy things and running and fighting and doing. So you need to have a very big praise to get to Lucas and Felipe
Get the energy.
with the
Yeah.
energy. Yes.
For sure, man. Well, yeah, thank you so much. I will let you know if I end up coming to Brazil, but all the best to you as you're working through this crazy time at work, and I hope that everything just goes as best as it can for you.
Thank you very much, Seth. All the same for you.
Thank you so much to Beto for coming on the podcast and letting me dive into his life. Really admire the value he puts on marriage and family and hard work ethic. Obviously, he is a really nice guy, and I hope to get to meet him in person. So thank you, Beto, for coming on. If you made it to this point in the podcast, just want to say thank you so much. If you want to sign up for the newsletter, you can do so at the show notes in the bottom. It's basically just a recap and all the highlight points from each episode. So if you would be interested in getting that, make sure to sign up. Also, if you are watching on YouTube, if you could like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, that helps to continue to grow this podcast. And if you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Pods, or any of those other podcast platforms, if you wouldn't mind, also leaving possibly a comment if you can, a review. Any of those things continue to help grow this show, and it means the world to me. So thank you so much for being here, for listening to me ramble, probably talking too fast, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.